I was just having a conversation with my daughter this morning and telling her that I'm at the point now that I want to give all of my ideas to many different people because it takes more than one person to bring each of them into being, which is why I want to give them away in the first place. I cannot enact them all because I am only one person. And she said, no, keep them for me so that I can do them later. And I told her, I want to see you live in the world where these ideas are actually brought into being. That's the point of imagining better, imagining how to improve things. I can teach her how to have her own idea generator. Just have endless ideas. Although it is a little bit, I don't want to say taxing, but it can be overwhelming. And I do know that not every idea is a good one. They all need refinement. They all need validation. They all need to see where they fit in. And if they don't fit in, then maybe they just go away for a while until they do have the ecosystem of support for whatever that thing is. But then I was also thinking about how the support for an idea, really what that boils down to is the believability of it, and the ability for people to grasp onto the bottom line. Make sure it's profitable, because that's the way that things are done. And woven into that particular thing is being able to measure how whatever it is affecting the bottom line. And that's a different topic. Our measurements can sometimes not accurately reflect the impacts of, well, let's say advertising, for example. I mean, you can get data on the opposite end, but do you know necessarily how to improve your advertisements to increase the other side of that? Anyway, I don't want to delve too much into that, but this thing about having ideas and having them improve the bottom line, the profit is in the impact that it has on our wallets, but also in our lives, the improvement of our lives. That's really, at the end of the day, what people are spending their money on, spend their time or money on, is on things that improve their lives. And the reason why I'm talking about that at all in this episode that I'm deciding to record in the parking lot of Office Depot to go get a bigger whiteboard to write everything out on. All of that is entwined in your creation space or imagination space. When you are looking at the world, and instead of having gripes about whatever it is that is frustrating or a pain point, when you are imagining how that could be better, that is the first spark of actually improving it. It does take some work to get from the imagining in your mind to reality, but you can be the generator of that spark. And maybe many people have that spark inside of them, and whoever it is who actually does the execution and implementation towards that thing is the person who is rewarded. And when other people who maybe have also had that idea or are first sparked by it coming into being, because they recognize what an improvement it is, they recognize the value of it, they recognize how it improves their lives, that generates instant adoption of whatever your idea is. And that's what makes things really take off. I'm speaking very nebulously and generally here, but when you're in your creation space and you're having these sparks of ideas, you're looking at the world and transforming the lens of frustration to someday it can be like this. Someday this is what I want to see in the world. This is the type of world I want to live in, and this is the type of world that I would like to create for other people. When you're looking at things through that lens, that is the first step to bringing something into being. Whether it's you who does the implementation or someone else, and you're the one adopting that because you said, oh yes, awesome, somebody else has thought about that. Just a side note, I've had that happen to me so many times where I see something come into being and I'm like, oh, that was my idea. Oh my gosh, why didn't I do anything about it? Oh, and I get frustrated because I think, okay, well, there's that one. I can't do that idea. But also I'm learning to be grateful for those moments when other people are enacting those things, because it is something that I wanted to see in the world. So instead of feeling as though you're being robbed of your idea when you see somebody else doing that thing, be grateful that that is one coming into being, that the idea had enough validity to have traction and actually be created. So be grateful for that and just keep going. There's so many opportunities out there to imagine better and to bring each of those things into being. And when you see other people bringing amazing things into being, maybe go see how they did it. See what that implementation looked like. Get the background story. There's so much improvement that can be done just in the implementation. Don't even, without even thinking about the actual product, let's say, or the concept that you want to see in the world. Just the implementation, just that process, that system has so many entanglements in it, so many obstacles, because we don't necessarily measure or have the metrics to really measure our values. That whole area can use improvement, and it's going to differ from place to place. I'm not trying to say it's going to be the same across the board. It's not. But the other part of all of this is that when you're imagining and you're creating better in your mind, you're taking that first step towards, you're helping. I really don't want to say, well, what other people have said is meet the universe halfway. So what that means is take action. Don't just wish for something, take action on it. And I may not necessarily want to use the word universe for that, but there is this nebulousness, invisibility around it, and that's what people are really talking about. You know what I mean. So I'll just let that go. I would like to have another term. But you do need to take action, and that idea is the first step. Having the thought is the first step towards taking action, and holding it in your heart, in your mind, holding that idea, giving it energy, is going to bring you to a point where you are compelled to take action on it. And that's how things happen from the inside out. And that's a very important ingredient. We're so accustomed to this outside in relationship, needing the world to be a certain way so that you can be happy, wanting this in your life so that you can feel a certain way, having a higher self that is somehow not, that is somehow outside of your body in order to deliver stuff to you. That's not how things work. that's why I don't like the term higher self. It is within you. It is inside of you. And when you create from within, when you feel from within, when you think from within, when you expand and give your energy, your internal energy to things, it grows and it becomes, how else do I say it? That's how things happen. They don't just appear. It has to happen that way first. And when people are talking about the law of attraction, and not just law of attraction, but prayer in general, anything that is making a request externally, having that frame of mind, that external thing, is what I have an issue with. I understand what they're saying. I feel like there's so much missing there. And it can be said in so many different ways, but for example, if you're that person who has the idea and you are going to a business meeting or something to tell your idea to somebody or a board or whatever it is, however you're actually meeting the world halfway and taking action on the things that you want to see made, to see improved, having thought about something enough that you're able to synthesize but also accept the input from other people about how things work right now, and you're able to integrate your idea into that existing ecosystem, to match it to what is there currently, but then also be able to plan ahead to lead things in the direction of what you know they can be. When you're able to do something when you're able to be in that space, people they respond to that leadership. They respond. Maybe you were not the leader of that project in the end, and you don't need to be, unless you want to be, I guess. But anyway, they respond to that energy. They respond to that, and that's what attracts people. It's the same as having confidence. Somebody who has true confidence is extremely attractive, regardless of whatever cream they've used on their skin. I just feel like the law of attraction maybe doesn't necessarily always say that. It's like some magical thing that happens. And while I do believe in the power of energy, I think there's too much mystery, and there are steps, there are reasons that things happen. They may only be seen on the other side of it, and I've had that experience in my own life where, for example, I'm in a lot of stress, I'm in a lot of frustration, but then a year later, it's as if the world has turned its nicer face towards me, and my life is easier in that one aspect. Okay, I'm not trying to say like, oh, I'm at the place where I have met certain goals, but now I have other goals. And it's this constant working, constant improvement. Anyway, I have been in that place where I then can rewind and realize at that time, if I was able to tell myself, hey, this is how you need to think and feel and do in order to get to where I am now, that would have sounded like gobbledygook to that previous version of me. I would have been in not the right place for that. I wouldn't have been able to see the steps. And maybe this just pertains to me, because other people are able to kind of be in that nebulous spot. But for me, and I don't feel like I'm alone in this, for me, I needed to see the operations. I needed to see how things actually work. Like I said, it's going to be different for every single situation, but to help you look at yourself as the version of yourself at whatever moment in time occurs to you, that you could, as the person you are now, you could then rewind back in time and be able to tell them what you know now. Take that scenario and imagine who you are now as the past version of yourself and what that future self might want to tell you about how to get to that place. And that is the type of interaction that we have from this higher self, is what people, and I was calling it that way too, but then I felt disconnected. I felt that's not really how that works. It's within, because going within is going to get you in touch with it. So why wouldn't it be within? It's within and without. It goes in all directions. Higher, deeper, more expanded, all directions. Perhaps I'll leave it at that. It's just, I thought it was going to be a quicker note. I'll edit this when I get back home, or whenever I have time in the day. I have some things to jot down on this whiteboard I'm getting, because mine is old. Oh, that's another thing. Hone your tools. If something is bringing you resistance in your life, improve it. Whatever it is that you need to spend money on to make your life a little bit smoother, to make things a little bit easier, you're going to whittle away the resistance to using that tool and actually making something happen. So for me, it could just be as silly and as stupid sounding as not being able to erase well from this board. So then I keep adding onto here and it gets smaller in certain spaces, and then I don't just take the time to like really scrub it out. That's resistance. Just get a new thing, do a new system, take the time to look at what you have available to you and use what you have. First and foremost, use what you have, but also see where there is resistance and do the improvements to take away the resistance so that you are more in flow. Okay. Wishing you a very beautiful day. And I am a little bit inspired to make an episode about just speaking into the world all the things that I want specifically. Might be a very long one. And I likely will not publish it. I'll just speak it out. Maybe I will publish it just as an example. But do that for yourself. If when you're sitting in your space and you're speaking the words out, maybe the words conjure up all the images specifically, and you don't need to speak out the specifics, but just practice, see what that does, and it can change, you can make adjustments. I feel like there's something about being so specific that you get attached to it and you don't allow the opening for it to change and adjust, because you don't know the future. To use another word that I think is overused, there's that co-creation. You're just kind of seeing snippets. You're creating pixels, and the other pixels might be fleshed out. Do we do pixels anymore? Probably not. Might be fleshed out by the universe. So, okay, there we go. I will leave it at that. Wishing you a beautiful day. Be as you are. Be breathed, supported, nourished, guided, lit from within. Oh, there's the tingle. Man, I missed that yesterday. Do the practices that put you in connection. For the past week, I've been trying other practices, not my own, just to see what they do, just to experiment, because this is an experiment. And I really like my own stuff. Make things your own, whatever it is that makes your skin tingle. That light, that spark within you, tingle from within. It may not happen every single day, but do that practice. Weave that into what you're doing, even if you're experimenting with what other people suggest. And the reason I'm looking at what other people suggest is because I'm curious, first and foremost. I'm a curious creature. And maybe there's something there to incorporate. So we'll see how that goes. But do the practices that you know work for you. I'm adding a little note here to say that this morning when I was recording in the parking lot, I didn't quite delve into this specific thing, but it's a hiccup in the message. And that is, even though we currently measure our bottom line or our values or our profits in certain ways, I do believe that if we start to create things from a value standpoint and get in touch with what is actually creating value for other people, for ourselves, what is actually making things more beautiful. And I won't go into all the examples of that. I'm sure you can tap into what I'm talking about, especially if you live in a consumer-minded country such as the United States of America, where people just create fluff and expect it to last, or they create trash, I should say, and expect it to last. Sorry, I probably shouldn't call things trash, but seriously, I walk through the shelves of stores and I just see things that don't function correctly. Why did we make it? Why? Anyway, that aside, there is so much opportunity to create things that last, that have value, that improve our lives. And it, like I was trying to say, it doesn't need to be a product. It doesn't need to be a physical item. Just anything that we spend our time on that gives to others. As we tap into what is truly valuable to us, as we find our inner resonance, the things that that inner space says yes to, that's going to guide, I think that's going to guide a lot of the adjustments and the measurements and metrics that we use to calculate value on items. So I'm hoping, I guess that's a long way of saying, I'm hoping that in the future we adjust our metrics to reflect actual value. And that may take some time. Another little side note deviation is that I learned a huge company, I'm sure this applies to many companies, have a problem getting rid of backstock on their shelves and without knowing their supply chain stuff. I'm hoping that crises like that can show people, can show corporations anyway, what it is that people actually want in their lives. So maybe I should just leave it right there. I feel like I could just go on some wavering tangent, and it is something that needs to be written out and made streamlined. But hopefully you know what I'm trying to talk about when I say creating value in the world. Please get in touch with what it is you value, and put energy towards that and improving.